Hello everyone, I'm Ryan, and today I'm writing to If Reality is Non-Dual, Why Are There So Many Gods in Hinduism? So, I was looking for a video. I decided to go back to one of his older ones, and I tried to look this video up. I don't think I did a reaction to it, but I'm kind of curious as to what Swami here has to say about the multiple gods. And also, I changed one bulb in my light, and now it's super bright. Anyways, let's go and get started.
Here's a question from Sandeep, who lives in Peoria, Illinois. He asks, if non-dual Brahman is the ultimate reality, then why did the ancient rishis say that Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva are the gods of creation, sustenance, and dissolution? Questions like this one often arise when we look at conventional Hindu teachings from the lofty standpoint of non-duality, Advaita. The scriptures of Advaita Vedanta accept only one undifferentiated underlying reality, called Brahman. But most other Hindu scriptures accept the existence of many gods. These two positions are contradictory and seem irreconcilable. But this apparent conflict can be resolved with the help of an important principle that applies to all Hindu scriptures, yet it's seldom discussed except in scholarly commentaries. That principle is called Adhikari Bheda. Bheda means difference, and the expression Adhikari Bheda refers to the differences among people who have a wide range of educational backgrounds, who come from various social and economic groups, who have distinct personalities, different emotional temperaments, and so on. The level of diversity among people is astounding. We all differ in the foods we like, in the kinds of entertainment we enjoy, in the clothes we wear, and in thousands of other ways. So it's no surprise that we also differ from one another in our religious and spiritual inclinations. The principle of Adhikari Bheda acknowledges these differences and wholeheartedly embraces them by enabling the Hindu tradition to provide different religious and spiritual teachings to different people, according to their individual preferences, needs, and capabilities. This principle is commonly found elsewhere, like in our schools. Students first learn basic math. Later, they learn algebra, geometry, and trigonometry. And later yet, they might learn calculus. Each of these subjects are taught according to a student's age and ability. Not surprisingly, some students advance more rapidly than their peers, while others opt out of advanced classes. It's different for each individual. All this holds true for the study of religious and spiritual teachings as well. First, we learn the basics about God, prayer, and the importance of dharma. Then, we gradually proceed to more complex topics, to the extent we're inclined to do so. And, just like students have different books for algebra, geometry, and so on, in the same way, we have different scriptures that present a wide range of religious and spiritual subjects. Consider this. Young children would find a calculus textbook to be incomprehensible. In the same way, those just beginning their spiritual journeys would probably find the loftiest teachings of Advaita Vedanta to be beyond their reach. Before studying calculus, students have to be adequately prepared by studying algebra and the rest. It's the same for spiritual seekers. Before they can grasp the highest teachings of non-duality, they too have to be adequately prepared. Traditional Vedantic texts list the necessary prerequisites. Those prerequisites include the cultivation of qualities like discernment, dispassion towards worldly pleasures, equanimity, and self-control, in addition to prayer, meditation, and the study of introductory texts under the guidance of a qualified teacher. A problem I've noticed from time to time is that some advanced spiritual students claim that Advaita Vedanta is better than other teachings because it reveals the highest reality, non-dual Brahman. But their claims really aren't justified at all. A book on advanced calculus isn't better than an introductory algebra text. These books have different subject matters and are intended for students of different levels. In the same way, our scriptures have different subject matters, intended for different types of students. For example, consider the Upanishads, the scriptures on which Advaita Vedanta is based. They're primarily focused on teaching non-duality for those who are adequately prepared for that profound subject matter. The Ramayana and Mahabharata mostly teach dharma, righteousness, for those who need guidance in coping with the complexity of day-to-day life. The 18 Puranas recount the lives of ancient saints and tell stories about gods like Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva for those who want to cultivate prayer and devotion. It's true that each of these scriptures include a range of subjects, including topics found in other scriptures. So there's a lot of overlap. But in general, each scripture has a primary subject matter that's meant for a particular group of people. For these reasons, no single scripture or teaching tradition can really be considered best. It's more accurate to say that certain scriptures and teachings are best suited for someone's unique preferences, needs, and capabilities, while other scriptures are not. The principle of adhikari bheda also explains why there are so many gods in the Hindu tradition. The earliest Hindu scripture, the Rig Veda, clearly says God is one, which the wise call by many names. How many names? The Puranic scriptures refer to 330 million gods, all of them different names and forms for the one God of the cosmos. That huge number is interesting because it's more than the population of our planet in ancient times. That means each person could worship his or her own individual form of God, worshipped by no one else. This observation shows how the Hindu approach to devotional life recognizes the importance of personal preferences and religious inclinations. The Hindu tradition allows and encourages followers to choose a particular form of God as their main focus for prayer and worship.
I do wonder if there's that list, though. It said 330 million. I would assume there's a list of gods out there with all 330 million of them, and what do they, I guess, provide, or I guess what makes them unique as to why you would want to worship one over the other, or maybe worship I don't know, a few of them. Like, I don't know if you're struggling in life in terms of finances. I'm assuming there's one for finances. I don't know. I think I do remember Lakane saying like there's a god that is good with like money or something like that, and people will worship that god. God of love and God of I don't know, just couldn't really think of anything else. I think money and love is the one. I think probably most people worship those gods to try to be better in love and to be better in business and stuff. Not to say that they just want money easily, but to help them, to guide them through, these hardships. I'm, I wonder if there is a list of all those gods and what would they be?
This attitude is refreshingly different from most other religions that prescribe one and only one form of God for prayer and worship. In my classes for children, I jokingly call this a one-size-fits-all approach to religion. One size of clothing certainly doesn't fit our many different shapes and sizes. So how can one form of God be suitable for us all, given our wide range of preferences and inclinations? Another question that's related to the principle of adhikari bheda comes from Ramya in India. She asks, what's your view on the philosophy of Dvaita, duality? Because it seems contradictory to the philosophy of Advaita.
I mean, Bhakti Yoga is kind of like a duality because there is this separation between you and God. But again, like what people have said in the comments is that it is a path to realization. Obviously, I need to stop saying that word, but it seems very obvious that those who do not follow at least Advaita Vedanta and maybe some non-duality teachings will have this dualistic point of view, and to perhaps encourage that would allow them to bypass that dualistic point of view, meaning they'll come to realize the non-duality of the world. But then again, I know Sadhguru, maybe even both Swamis that I watch, are perfectly fine and okay with people obtaining moksha or enlightenment through bhakti yoga. It's really weird for, say, a non-duality to accept a duality teaching and be enlightened in terms of duality. Am I wrong in that? Like, is it possible to obtain moksha or enlightenment through bhakti yoga, duality, worship of God as a separate being from yourself? I would assume so, but then Advaita Vedanta, Advaita, doesn't seem like it because it's specifically non-duality.
In fact, the teachings of Vedanta include several different schools of thought that were established by greatly revered scholars long ago. In the 8th century, Shankara developed the teachings of Advaita, or non-dualistic Vedanta. 3 centuries later, Ramanuja developed the teachings of Vishishta Advaita, or qualified non-dualism. Later yet, Madhva developed the teachings of Dvaita, dualism. We can't get into the details of these 3 schools of thought, so here's a brief but highly simplified account. Dvaita, dualism, teaches that God is separate and distinct from all individual souls, from the consciousness or awareness that's the essential nature of us all. Vishishta Advaita, qualified non-dualism, teaches that each individual soul is a small part of God and shares God's divine qualities. And Advaita boldly declares that there's only God, nothing else. All that exists is a form or manifestation of the divine.
So I guess my point of view in terms of consciousness is qualified non-duality. Uh, Visheshta? Uh, Visheshta. I hope I said that right. Because again, like I said, like we have our own consciousness is individual to all of us. That makes sense to me because again, I'm not conscious of your mind, even though I should say we share the same consciousness, but even though we are the same consciousness, I am only ever aware of what's in my own brain and whatnot. But in terms of Visheshta, that we all have like a small snippet of God as an individual and not as we are the one God. I mean, our consciousness is the one God, and we have a temporary lean or borrowing, I guess, a portion of the consciousness.
That exists as a form or manifestation of the divine. All three teachings seek to
Oh, hold on. Let me see. Make sure I didn't. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything.
boldly declares that there's only God, nothing else. All that exists is a form or manifestation of the divine. All three teachings seek to explain the very same reality, but they adopt three different perspectives for their explanations. To understand the dualistic perspective of Dvaita, suppose you gaze at the ocean and see many individual waves. You might observe how each wave is born from the ocean, sustained by the ocean, and eventually returns to the ocean. This metaphor nicely represents Dvaita's teachings about the relationship between individual souls and God, who is the source, sustainer, and ultimate destination for all that exists. To understand Vishishta Advaita's view, suppose you consider the fact that each wave is actually a small part of the ocean. The ocean is made of countless waves that share its qualities. This metaphor represents the teachings of Vishishta Advaita. Each individual soul is a small part of God, a spark of divinity, as they say. And God is the unity because of which the diversity of souls exists. Finally, to understand Advaita's view, suppose you appreciate the fact that ultimately there's only water. There are no waves or ocean at all. This metaphor represents Advaita's sole acceptance of one non-dual Brahman. Regarding the ocean, you can't say that one perspective is right and the others are wrong. Each is correct from its own standpoint. But the three perspectives do differ in complexity and subtlety.
And that's kind of confusing to say that whenever you say, well, which one is it? Are we non-dual Brahman, or do we have a grasp of of Brahman as an individual being? That there is this apparent. I can't remember if there is a there's no separation actually, or that there's this duality, Vedanta, where God and us are separate. They're all right in their own way. It's kind of strange to say that.
One ocean with many waves is a simple concept. It's a bit more complex to say that each wave is part of the ocean. And to say there are no waves or ocean, there's only water, is quite subtle, since it requires a radical shift of perspective. all this holds true for the three Vedantic schools of thought as well. You can't say that one is right and the others are wrong, because each is correct from its own standpoint. But they do differ in complexity and subtlety. And that's where the principle of adhikari bheda comes in. For those just setting out on a spiritual path, Dvaita is a good starting point. Not just because it's the simplest of the three, but because it most strongly supports the practice of prayer. And prayer is essential for spiritual growth. The teachings of Dvaita are sufficient for a lifelong practice of prayer and worship. But for those who want to understand their relationship with God more deeply, it might be helpful to explore the teachings of Vishishta Advaita or Advaita. It all depends on the individual. Based on the principle of adhikari bheda, any of these three teachings can be followed. The many different scriptures, gods, and teachings found in the Hindu tradition are all examples of adhikari bheda. This principle often goes unrecognized, but it's crucial because it ensures that individual religious and spiritual needs are never ignored. This is the 8th video in a series that answers...
Okay, I think that's the end of that. So anyways, there, I understand what he means by they're right in their own perspective. They are right. That's the same thing. That's to say that even Christianity and Islam and Buddhism and Jainism and whatever other religions out there are very much correct in their own standpoint as well. I mean, don't get me wrong in terms of Dvaita. It's all the Western religions are in fact correct. I mean, in Advaita it's also pretty much it's the same, because it is a duality in the sense that you and God are separate, and this is following worship and prayers. But is there not one? I guess it's kind of like I don't know how to say, like, not ignorant, but like a high horse kind of thing. I forgot what the word is. Arrogant, maybe arrogant's the right word. Thing to say that this is the correct religion, you know? This is the religion that you should follow. Is it Advaita Vedanta, or is this the qualified non-dual Advaita or Vedanta? Qualified non-dual Vedanta, or is that one the real one? But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I guess I'll say this. What I like is the sheer fact that however you feel that it is the correct way to enlightenment, that you find peace within yourself, is the right way. I 100% agree with that, whether that is duality or non-duality, whether that's following Buddhism, Islam, Christianity, Catholic, Buddhism, Jainism, I think I said Buddhism already, qualified non-dual, Vedanta, whatever it may be. If it is giving you peace and making you have a happy life, that is the correct way. Obviously, that way cannot be correct if it's causing harm to other human beings. That is definitely the wrong way. But anyways, so that's my reaction to if reality is non-dual, why there's so many gods in Hinduism? Because there's so many people. I do wonder if there's a list for those 330 million gods, and as to what they provide individually. Anyways, if you like my content, please consider subscribing, thumbs up, thumbs down below. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next vid.